Hello, 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 everyone out there, and welcome back to the Art of Attraction. This is your host, Dominey Drew. Thrilled you could join us. We have a fantastic show for you today. I've got a couple of guests who are here to talk about the art of open relationships and what is often called ethical non-monogamy, which, just to start out very clear at the beginning, is very different from cheating on your girlfriend, which is not encouraged at all. So, if we're just going to have a couple of sound checks here for a couple of minutes, so I'll just reintroduce myself again. My name is Dominey Drew. I am a men's relationship coach. I help single men attract life partners through personal and relationship coaching. And I run a program, an 8-week training program called The Art of Attraction, where I help guys understand how they're subconsciously holding themselves back from what they want, and we get you zeroed in on those subconscious beliefs that are holding you back and eliminate them so that you can actually have the romantic and sex life that you really want. So, as always, you can reach us by calling in if you are inclined. We have our phones available at 708-793-7769. That's 708-793-7769. And we are also on Twitter at Dominey Drew. That's Dominey. And on Instagram at the same. Whoops, hold on. I seem to be having a little bit of trouble here. Give me just a pause and we'll be right with you. Sorry about that, guys. As always, my expertise is in men and relationships and not in IT and technology. And sometimes we have that as a result. So if you'll just give us a couple minutes here to work out some technical difficulties.
Click on settings.
Just want to make sure we're coming through. Is everyone hearing us okay? We need to get some feedback here. Noah, what did you push?
No, it's not. It's not. It's this. It's not the mixer.
No, don't change that. That's all set. None of that should change.
Well, that's correct. So.
Yeah.
But if it works in Audacity, it should work here, right? It's the same. You do normally record at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So 5.6 should be up. It's okay, we can restart if we need to. He said 5.6. Alt 3.4 should always be at 0. Oh, that should be at 0. Wait, but we have a third microphone, but he doesn't know we have a third microphone. And raise channel 5.6 did that. 3.4 should be. Disconnect and check your audio input setting, he says. Do you know where that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what is it using? Built-in microphone. Okay, so we need to make sure it shows up as a... Does this work? Oh wow, so we have no... Okay, how'd that? There we go. See if he hears us now.
Hey there, we're just working out some technical issues. Sorry about that, guys. We'll get ourselves straightened out and right back with you shortly. Rest assured that while I can't fix recording equipment in any way, shape, or form, I am excellent at helping men work through their relationship issues. So that's good news for everyone. We're just about, I think we're focusing now. I think we're finally getting to where we need to be. Just making sure so I'm not talking to myself all evening. Although, I will say that most evenings when I'm not on the radio, that is exactly what I'm doing. So it's really, it's all the same to me here. Stand by. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Art of Attraction with Dominey Drew. This is your host. Happy to have you here with me. Sorry for the technical issues early on. Looks like we got ourselves worked out here. So, as I said, if you'd like to join the conversation, please call in. Call in with your questions, call in with your comments. Don't call in and be a douche, but otherwise, please feel free to avail us of our knowledge and experience. You can find me on Facebook at Dominey Drew Coaching. That's DOMINEY DREW Coaching. You can call in at 708-793-7769. And you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Dominey Drew. So please feel free to reach out. We are listening for your comments and happy to answer your questions. So our topic today is an exciting one. We're going to discuss a little bit of different relationship structures. So a lot of people grow up and they assume that you whatever, you go to school, you find someone you really like, you get married, you settle down, you have sex with one person for the rest of your life, you have 2.5 children and a white picket fence, and then at some point you retire and die. Which, while that sounds incredibly fun to me, there are a lot of other ways to do things. There's a lot of buzz around the world right now about all these different terminologies and relationship structures and things like that. There's polyamory and swinging and monogamy and open relationships and all these different terms and things like that. So we're really going to go ahead and dive right in today and explore some of these and hear from some people who have actually experienced it. So I'd like to introduce my guests today. I have with me Tabitha and Noah, who are a married couple who have experienced some somewhat alternative relationship structures themselves. You guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So let's start with the basics. How did you guys end up getting into this kind of lifestyle, or maybe even earlier on? Were you in it originally when you met, or did you discover it together?
I think it began with us both checking out the same women. And then it became, us talking about what we liked in women. And I'd never really been able to explore that as an adult. And it just grew from there, and we just started having more open communication about things. And it was actually Noah who knew more about the lifestyle than I did.
And when you say the lifestyle, what exactly is it that you mean?
Well, that can be different for lots of couples. For me, I kind of use that as the umbrella of we sleep with other people together.
Woo! The audience just got really excited. What's your perspective, Noah?
All of that is accurate, definitely. We have always been open with each other sexually, which was helpful. We were very clear in what we liked, and we liked to experiment, which helped. And as Tabitha said, we would check out other women together, which is fun, and even when I noticed that Tabitha found other men attractive, I could recognize that, and it wasn't problematic. That was a bit eye-opening in our relationship when that first happened.
That was shocking for me to realize not only could he tell, but he was happy to talk about it and it wasn't weird for him. And I think that's a very rare thing. Most people, you know, their insecurities kind of come out when they see their partner checking someone else out. And so it was nice. Yeah, it was a nice surprise.
So, what was it that really started you guys in, as you say, the lifestyle? You said you were checking out women, and then what was kind of the next step?
There was a very distinct time when we were having sex and we were watching porn at the same time. There was a setup.
Let's talk about that in detail for research purposes.
Absolutely. It is something that we had done multiple times. It was an interesting way to heat up a moment, to explore other things that we liked or things that made us excited, or even just straight up research for positions and other things. And there was some setup. And I honestly don't remember exactly which thing it was. Maybe it was like Glory Hole or something. I don't remember. And Tabitha asked me, she goes, well, how does this even happen in real life? Because, this isn't, how in porn, it's the pizza delivery man. But in real life, how does this happen? And I said, well,
I'm ordering pizza from the wrong places.
Yes, exactly.
We're going to talk about this later. Okay, continue.
Every man's fantasy. I said that there were clubs, there were lifestyle clubs, and Tabitha looked at me and said, where are they, and when are we going?
That's amazing. Where are they and when are we going? I love it.
So then it began with research, looking into whatever we could find online that was local to us, and we went. The first night we went, we were super nervous. We got lost, and I just kept thinking, maybe we'll just be lost and we'll just never find it. But we went and had our first experience, and I don't see us ever going back now. It's mostly been a positive experience.
You mean going back from the lifestyle?
Yeah.
And what was that first event that you went to? What did you end up finding?
Boy, we ended up finding a very small club that was near where we lived at the time, and
it was an experience.
Yeah.
So it was like a public place where you could kind of go and explore with other couples or something like that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a private club, right? It's members only. It's only adults. It is specifically...
Sorry, kids.
Yeah.
We'll talk about when you're older. Also, turn the shit off.
It's specifically for sort of colloquially known as the lifestyle. Different clubs do different things. Some are focused on meeting other people for play. Others are more towards kink. It just depends. It's not that dissimilar to like the gay bathhouses. It's just a safe place to meet other like-minded people.
Mm-hmm. And did you find people there? Like, what were the kind of people who were there? I feel like people are listening to this and imagining that they're just full of weirdos, because I think everybody generally thinks that people who are into this lifestyle are not sort of like normal people that you pass on the street. Is that accurate?
You would be surprised at how wide the net is. I mean, we have met lawyers and doctors and, all kinds of different people from all kinds of different backgrounds. This particular club was very small, and so, everyone that goes there all the time. So that was a bit limiting for us, and, we ultimately just kept exploring other clubs in the area, and we kind of just started that way for the first year or two, just going through the club route, a few hotel takeover type situations.
And how were the people at the club when you first sort of went? Were people nice and receptive, or were they kind of judgy? Do they expect you to know things? What could someone expect?
I
if they
would
walk
not. I would not say judgy. I would say this particular club, everybody was very friendly. And what I find most in this lifestyle that I love, that I respond to the best is that openness, is that acceptance. There is the rare, idiot who says the wrong thing or whatever, but for the most part, it's pretty self-policing. If you're an asshole, people aren't going to invite you back.
Nice. Now you look like you might have something to add.
Well, to talk about who, it's a cross-section of life. So there are people of all types and all backgrounds and all socioeconomic levels. If you spend any time with this as your hobby, you will find the places that match your requirements pretty easily. It's not difficult to find clubs and events and vacations and destinations. I mean, it's everywhere. It's surprisingly everywhere. And if you live in any city and you Google this, you will find more than one, and it will blow your mind because they're everywhere.
Now, that's a really great point because I'm pretty sure everybody's doing that right now. So, if that were the case, what exactly would you Google? Let's say if you went to a new city, like what would you put in to find clubs like these?
You can search swinger club, you can search lifestyle club, you can search adult only club, although if you do the latter, you may end up with strip clubs as a subset. And
are these strip clubs or are they different?
They are not. You do not pay for sex, you do not pay for nudity. So that's a big tenet in the...
Wow, you go to some racy strip clubs, man.
Well...
Like, I was just thinking girls kind of shaking their booties, in thongs.
Sorry, I'm being
alone.
specific that, like, generally there's an entrance fee into these clubs, but you are not paying to have sex, right? Like, that's very clear. You're paying to help keep the club open and the lights on. There is absolutely no guarantee of seeing anything or doing anything. Now, a strip club is totally different. You have an expectation that you will see nudity, and you can even pay for certain services, which is specific. But in the lifestyle clubs, that's not acceptable. They generally, I assume, would get into trouble, so they avoid it.
And so in your personal experience, where should I go to get paid for sex?
Excuse me?
All right, well, it was worth a shot. Anyway. I might have knocked no office game there just a little bit. Sorry, I'm just looking for advice for my next career. Apologies. So you went to a club, you found one, the people were pretty nice, and with that, we say that was it must have been a pretty good experience because you went again, right?
I would say we got super lucky our first time.
Okay.
And that's probably a good point to talk about, is that, we're 5+ years in right now, and we love it. But there were some growing pains. I mean, it's a big life change to put yourself out there in that way. And so it just so happened that, we met a couple there. It was their first time as well. And so it couldn't have been more perfect. But I don't think that's totally realistic of what everyone's first time would be like.
Do you have any, have you heard stories from people of their first time that, somebody who's exploring this for the first time might have could reasonably expect it to be like? Or, in other words, if you think it's kind of, chances are it may be kind of mediocre, what might that look like so that they can know that it's to be expected and not them?
Most people can barely get the wherewithal to even go inside. So when I speak to other people about their first times, they usually sit in the corner and doe-eyed and just watch.
It's got to be intimidating, right?
It's intimidating, and then they go home, and they may do that 5 or 6 times. And I would say normally, people...
Yeah, and and from my perspective, I think that's okay. That's awesome. You're going to go home and you're going to talk about it with your partner, and maybe you eventually it changes for you, or maybe that's just what you're into, and that's fine as well.
To that point, unless something catastrophic happens, like there's someone there who shouldn't be, or someone misbehaves in a way that ruins other people's nights, the only way to not have a good time is if you choose to not have a good time.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, if you frame it as in the worst that happens is we go and we sit there and we see people, and sometimes they'll be nude and sometimes they'll be dancing, and you'll see different people in different configurations. You might see two women and that might be new for you. So just watching, there's just so much to see, and if you let it, you can let it be sexually positive for you and your partner. So at the worst case scenario, you go home and you're really excited, and you can capitalize on that. That is a euphemism.
Capitalizing it. That's what the kids are calling it these days. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to behave once you're in there. Is there a particular etiquette? Is this like a nightclub, like a dance club type of environment, or is this type of thing where you can kind of make a mistake and fuck up a little bit and potentially either, in other words, if people are going in totally new or totally blind, is there anything that they should know before they go?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Noah talk specifically about scenes and what to do and what not to do for that kind of thing. But I will say, first of all, they can vary greatly. Some are more centered around a dance floor, for example.
You mean the clubs can vary greatly?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. And, there's always a separation. So if you just want to go and watch people and that kind of thing, that's fine. If you're more comfortable with going into the playrooms and watching people be intimate, then that's also an option. Most clubs, if they're run correctly, should give you a tour when you get there. And they'll take you through the property and tell you the things to do, things not to do, where to find the towels, all of that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. It's like a high-end spa.
Sometimes, yes, actually, yes.
Yeah, I will put in a giant plug for Oasis Aqua Lounge in Toronto, Canada. This place is literally a spa. It has a heated pool and a hot tub and a sauna, and it's 3 floors. There's multiple dance places. There's lots of playrooms. I mean, this place is amazing.
Yeah, this is the sound of me canceling my Christmas plans, telling my family to go to hell, and going to Toronto instead. Please continue. I'm just typing.
So I would add to what Tabitha said and say that an Oasis is a great example. The first thing they do is give you a rundown of the rules, and the general rule is you must ask first, and you can only ask once, right? So it's super important.
Let's just say that one again.
You must ask, and you can only ask once. The ask once part is very important and makes the atmosphere of the place very nice, because you never get harped on, right? So if someone comes and says, "May I sit here?" and you say, "I'd rather you didn't," they should not even talk to you until, there's some kind of difference in space or position that makes it obvious that whatever you were doing is over. And they shouldn't, and especially if they ask to touch and you say no, they pretty much should leave you alone. And it's surprising how well it's self-policed. Other things about the clubs is that the line between hedonism and kink gets blurred a bit. So a lot of them have kink spaces or kink apparatus, and I find in the kink world that there's a subset of rules that are even more specific that one should know. So
we haven't really gone into that on this show, and that's actually one of the topics that should be coming up in the next week or two. For everybody out there who's unfamiliar, when Noah is saying kink, it's less sort of about the sexual element, although that can certainly be a piece, and it's more about creating a power dynamic where one person is dominant and one person is submissive. So when you sort of hear jokes like, "Oh, that's super kinky," or you've seen 50 Shades of Grey or things like that, although that is a not great example of what that world is like, it's, that the kink is more about creating some form, and it can take very many forms, so we'll go into this in a lot of detail another time, some form of power dynamic. As opposed to having sex as equals, there's a top and a bottom, a dominant and submissive, so to speak. So there is a little bit, as I think Noah's sort of expressing here, of overlap between these two worlds, but not as much as you might think. So we're talking about the sort of swinging open relationship world, and we'll talk a little bit about definitions in just a minute as well, and all this terminology. But that's just to clarify what he's saying when he says kink. So sorry, Noah, continue.
Oh no, that's fine. I mean, basically, in kink, the idea is that you should not interrupt, and so.
And this is the scene that I was referring to when I said that you would explain. Just to be clear.
Yeah, so when you said scene, what exactly did you mean by that in the swinging world?
Well, I know, I mean, in the kink world, she means scene in the kink world where we were in a space and we were doing something and someone interrupted and they were asked to tone it down, to not interrupt, and this person flipped out and got kicked out of the club.
Oh my.
Yeah, because he was new, obviously, and got really excited by seeing something, and exclaimed loudly how great it was. And
just to, I think this is kind of funny in retrospect. I am tied to a wall, facing away, facing the wall. So I can hear this commotion happening. It's interrupted the scene, as we call it. And I can hear it happening, but I can't see anything. And so I'm completely vulnerable in that moment. And Noah, who, is basically in charge of what's going on, is trying to explain to this person, this is not what you do. So I think, if you're unsure, sit back and watch and see what other people are doing. Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's a good takeaway. So really, if you're going in, you're unsure, default to giving people space or hanging back so that you don't kind of interrupt what's going on.
Yes, and if you're going to ask something, ask in the lowest level of voice you possibly can, right? If it's quiet in a room, don't scream. If you're on a dance floor, of course, you have to talk over music. That's fine, but
and I would treat it as you would any sort of small theater setting. In a way, I mean, you're not going to go to a show, a theater production of any kind, hopefully, and carry on a loud conversation or cause a disturbance. So think of it as a theater performance, and you will be just fine.
Yeah, just don't be that person.
Nice. I feel like that's a great example. That sounds really clear. So when people walk in, I'm sort of trying to clarify this image for people who've never been. I might be thinking about going. Do you just open the door and there's just like a huge orgy happening in front of the door? What do people expect? What does it look like once you're in there typically?
My experience has been, the clubs are usually, very generic looking. You would have no idea that it's there unless you're looking for it. You walk in to a pretty secure, small room where they check you in, make sure that you're a member, all of those things. Then you're given the tour, and usually the big playrooms where the orgies happen are kind of tucked away so that those are kind of separate from the dance area. A lot of times there's food too, so that's kind of a separate area.
It's like one of those fancy strip clubs with steak and...
Yeah, to be clear, we find this to be weird, that there are,
we are not pro-food at the Lifestyle Club.
I can see how that might be kind of a little bit weird.
It's and this might be something to do with the part of the United States we live in. A certain area, we're talking buffet style and chips and stuff. I don't know if I'm in a Lifestyle Club or going to a picnic.
Now, on the flip side, and just to, toot the horn one more time, the club in Toronto, for example, you can order food, and I find that to be a different thing.
Right.
It is the kind of environment where you feel comfortable enough to have food delivered, and there are places you can sit and enjoy that.
And it's basically in downtown Toronto, so you can Uber Eats basically anything, and they will bring it, and you can go grab it, and that's fun. I mean, I think the last time we went, we ordered sushi.
Yeah.
We
And sat by the pool in the
and-
middle of the day. Yeah, it's
and ate sushi. It was great.
Yeah. So no orgies when you walk in the door. It's pretty discreet, so that kind of thing is usually broken up.
Yeah, many of the clubs are dance club style, so people are in dance club attire. Now, I will say that on the whole, the female patrons, many of them will be in risque clothing, so you will see that. You probably won't see orgies, but I mean, if you show up at 1 a.m, people might be having sex right in front of you as you walk in.
So can you have sex kind of anywhere?
It all depends on the club.
So there are usually like certain areas where it's restricted. You can and you can't. There are certain rooms for it.
I mean, not next to the chip bowl, please. It's there. There's always going to be heavy petting and that kind of thing all over in the clubs, but there are clear areas where it's partitioned off first of all, so that there's not just a bunch of creepy single men just like hanging out and watching.
Note to self: don't be that creepy man who's just
Please don't be that creepy man. Just don't.
So that's a good point. So so you said earlier that it's a good idea to kind of hang back as default as opposed to sort of jumping in. So what is the difference in your guys' experience of hanging back and being respectful and sort of wallflowering and being a creeper?
I think that is a matter of I want to say social skills, being able to pick up on social cues. I know that Noah, for example, is really good at this. I'm not so much, but you can tell by people's body language how much they want to be interacted with, how open they are to joining them and that kind of thing. And I will also say a smile and hello will get you a long way. No one is going to be offended if you do that.
That's right, and probably we should preface this with a lot of the time in the clubs, you meet someone socially as if you were in public, and then you might play with them, and you may go to another space and play with them, but that doesn't necessarily even happen at all, let alone the first time. So usually in the club-like settings, you can just go and talk to people. I mean, people have themes most of the time, so people have amazing outfits, and just complimenting people's outfits is a great opener.
Like costume theme nights, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it'll be intricate, sometimes it'll be risque, sometimes it'll be esoteric in a way that you would never imagine to see, like something that works for you, and you never would imagine someone wearing that in public. It's not necessarily public, but you know, in your mind, you're amazed that someone else in the world kind of feels the same way about something you do. So, it's pretty clear. If everyone's just sitting around drinking and talking and dancing, then like, of course, go talk to people. I mean, that's why you're there, hopefully. So
that's good to know. So then rather than people sort of expecting they're going to open the door onto like an ancient Roman orgy, it's actually more just like a regular club, but everybody is there it's sort of indicated that you have interest in potentially hooking up.
Yes, and of course there are more boobs in a regular club.
There are boobs?
There are boobs. Yep. Scandal.
What can I say? I love my life.
So, all right. So let's bring it back to you guys. So you said you started it. You were already married when you started it. Is that right?
Yes. I
So
think so. It's
somewhere
it's
around
all
that line?
blur now.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we probably started talking about it before we got married. But
It's all the boobs. They're blurring your memory.
that's right.
Yeah.
Just all in my face. I
Oh.
just can't think.
What a way to go.
Before we were married, there was always the like, oh, we would love to play with another woman together. The mythical unicorn. Of course, everyone wants to do this. We made zero progress on this. I mean, it was always, oh, we liked the idea of the thing, but had absolutely no concept of how to do it. So, no, the porn sex happened 6 months after we were married. So we didn't do anything outside monogamy until after we were married. Yeah.
Okay.
But it wasn't even that long.
And what was the state of your guys' relationship? Like, I feel like a common belief about this kind of world is like people do it either to like save their relationship or to protect it, or one person does it and the other one does. Like, what are the dynamics? What were those for you?
Well, unfortunately, I do hear that a lot, and we did, especially in the beginning. When we first got into this, I was 22 and am still, several years later, can be the youngest person at times. And we would often hear, well, our marriage got stale, and so, we came to this. And that's okay. But for us, it was so different because we're so young, and we didn't need to spend 30 years together just with the two of us to realize that, life is short enough. Like, let's go enjoy this. And
Do you think it might really be different for each couple in that way?
Absolutely.
yeah. And, the state of our relationship was great at the time, and we have grown so much through doing this, and are way stronger than I think we ever would have been, strangely, by bringing other people into our bedroom, so to speak.
It does put things in context. You're like, oh, I'm watching my wife have sex with someone. This is awesome. And then you're like, I really can't be that mad about that small thing because it's just dumb. I mean, like, if I'm cool with this, like, I shouldn't be that upset about little things that you're like, this is silly.
Did you really find that it made a difference with little fights and stuff?
Well, I mean, this is getting very personal to us, but I mean,
I'm okay with that.
I would say over the last 5 years, we've had to do a lot of growing, and we did. And so, I mean, recently we had just reflected how smooth things have been going. Part of that is knowing how to fight, which is like a whole nother thing.
I did an episode on that a few weeks ago.
It's totally like, we have code phrases for when we're annoyed. We have,
And that makes all the difference too. Being together, it's just a constant, management of our own feelings, our feelings together, our feelings with other people. And before we started into this, we always had a conversation about expectations. What can I expect from you when we're doing this, when we're doing that? What am I providing to the relationship? And we've just carried that through and built on that. And so through all of this, we just know each other so much better now. And I think that's how we fight better. We are better at it.
well, yeah, and yeah, we could
We're
pivot.
going off here.
Yeah, we could pivot and talk about that all night. But when we talk about a relationship, Tabitha being bisexual and never experiencing it is super important. The idea that she got married at 22 and she was supposed to spend the rest of her life with me and never get to experience something that is core to her being is basically insane. The concept of it is insane. Like, why should my wife be miserable over something that everyone can enjoy? So that was a big driver, I think. We also benefit from generationally being from a place where we can just be sex positive. Like, sex was super important to our relationship on the first date. So to be sex positive, to like sex, to not feel like there's going to be religious repercussions for enjoying each other and doing the things we do, it honestly is a natural progression for us because, personally, I just find monogamy boring. And I adore my wife, and I think she's the sexiest person I know.
Cue the tears.
But, we have escapades that blow our minds, and it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah, we could talk about this for days because we love it so much, and we've had, so many experiences that have just been wonderful. And I'm not just talking about sex. I'm talking about travel and conversations with people and that sort of thing. It's been great. So please, Dominey, keep us on track.
I'm just watching this go. This is actually kind of great, watching you guys kind of enjoy what you've created together.
oh, thank you.
That's nice. So you're not talking a lot, I feel like, about communication. Is that an important thing if you're going to be, I know.
What a leading question.
Yeah.
Is communication important? Yes, of course. We actually, funny story. This both is important to the lifestyle and to fighting. We have a code phrase that we say is, "I need you to hear me." So when one person needs to be heard and needs the other person not to flip out about what they have to say or get past how annoyed they are or angry they are. And we've used it both to work through in the moment lifestyle situations and in other sort of standard relationship stuff.
And I think, that touches on, I want to say, a flaw or something that has been a bit negative about this is, for me personally, listening to him in a moment when he's saying we need to exit this situation. And that happens. You may find yourself literally in bed with someone, and then you just realize in the moment, like, this is really not what we need to be doing right now. And so there were times where he would have to kind of after the fact, the next day or after we've gotten home, be like, listen, you were not hearing me. And it's taken me a long time, and I'm getting better at it, but, I think that
She's at a loss for words.
I am at a loss for words.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's really important. I mean, you just can't be married and not communicate, at least not happily.
I don't know. I think we have a slightly atypical philosophy. Marriage is kind of a job, and we choose to be married every day, and we choose to work on it every day. So the expectations for everything, I mean, like getting up, who's cooking breakfast, who's doing work, whatever, all the things. So when it comes to the lifestyle, it's super important, and that's where the fun communication gets to be. That's where you get to be like, oh, I really want to see this, and I want to try this, and I really like that person. I want to see them again, and we're gonna go around the world, and we're gonna go on a cruise, and we're gonna do all these things, and you get to set expectations. You get to reflect on all the fun you have. It's clutch, but I mean. These things kind of already, the template of them existed in our relationship before we started. By pure luck. I mean, I can't take credit. I mean, just luckily we were compatible, and luckily we fumbled our way through it. But
I think that's a good way to put it too. It is fumbling, and that's what it was like in the beginning of the lifestyle too. Like, I mean, we were just silly and didn't know what we were doing, and everybody's new at some point. So we've all been there. I still get nervous. It's been 5 years, and I still get nervous every time we go into a new situation.
yes.
So what do you guys do if one person wants to do something and the other one doesn't?
We don't do it. Period. Now, I would say knowing your partner is good. So, there have been times, and there's still times where we'll be presented with an option, and my first instinct may be to say no, I could never do that, and we may talk about why is that, and in talking about it, then we realize it's just all in my head. So I think there's a difference between a specific act and.
Well, it was a leading question. She's describing what we call taking one for the team. You never take one for the team, right? Like, if we're presented with a couple and they want to play with us and one of us is not compatible, then we don't. I mean, we just can't. I personally can't fake it, so it's really important that I have to step back and explain one other thing. You spend your life, and perhaps when you're single, and you date one other person. And that's very difficult to find compatibility with one other person. But when you get in the lifestyle and you're a couple and you primarily play with other couples, it's exponentially more difficult because each partner has to be compatible with the other two people. So,
But in the same way, you have the luxury of knowing you're not trying to marry this person.
Yeah.
Or this couple, whatever it is. So.
Which is kind of the brilliance of it. They can be friends and they can be someone you play with, but thank God they're not your spouse. Like you just appreciate your spouse even more, because you're like, they do that, you'd be like, I love them, but she does that thing, I would jump off a bridge if I had to deal with that. And you're like, oh, thank God I have my wife. Oh, thank God. So that is a bit of a funny result.
Yeah, it seems like kind of counterintuitive. So you opened up your marriage, you started sleeping with other people, and it actually made you closer?
Oh, 100%.
It's
I can't even talk about that enough. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
and you have to have at least an openness with your partner to be open to trusting them in these kinds of things. You have to rely on one another. I think also an important note to get in is that jealousy is kind of normal. Healthy. There's a healthy jealousy of like watching your partner do things. That's okay. I think that's natural.
Yeah, it's okay to have feelings.
Right. It's okay to have feelings about this, and it's okay to develop feelings with the people you're seeing, so long as there's like a healthy distance there.
Oh boy. Now my wife is pivoting to a very complicated subject, which is, the line between hedonism, the enjoyment of sex, and polyamory, the search for relationship. And so we definitely fall very much on the hedo side. If there was a Kinsey scale from 1 to 6, and hedo is 1 and poly 6, we're like a 1.05.
So by that you mean that you guys will, say, go to clubs or go on trips and meet and hook up with people, but you don't, like, date them long term?
We may date them long term, actually. We may, we have several people in our home state that we have been friends with for years. We've gone to people's weddings. We've met people's kids. We've, all these things. And, but we don't maintain a close relationship with them independent of one another.
Well, it's the difference between sex and intimacy. We don't get intimate with them long term, right? So we don't describe our inner feelings. We don't rely on them as our person we call when something happens. We don't, they don't unload on us their life troubles. It's kept, in our experience, it's kept a bit light.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. And we have, people that we really connect with, that we consider great friends, that I think, we would do anything for, and then vice versa. But for the most part, it's keeping a lightheartedness about it. It's keeping things kind of distance away.
Yeah, that's just our personal.
And you got to work at that. I don't think that comes naturally all the time. I think sometimes it's harder to kind of step back and see that kind of thing unfolding.
And it gets interesting because we talk about communication and communicating with our spouse, but actually the more difficult communication is with other people, where you have to, are you treading the well, do they like us enough? Do they not like us enough? Are we being too demanding? Are we not giving them enough? You have to find that line. Then you have to talk to them about it. Like, okay, well, we had a great time, but we didn't really like this one thing. I hope you understand. And being able to communicate with basically strangers about sexual things or about relationship things, where you're like, for us, we have a play preference, which is same room, which means pretty much no matter what we're doing, we prefer pretty much always to be doing it together, because part of the enjoyment for us is seeing our partner have a great time. And there's also definitely the private porn sensation of your wife is a porn star right in front of you, which is crazy, because I can speak to a jealousy feelings thing. Growing up as a male in the United States, I had a feeling that okay, I know we're gonna go to this club, and I know we're gonna play with other people, and I really want someone to go down on me, but that probably means my wife needs to go down on someone else. If we meet a couple and we do, if I get a blowjob, my wife is probably going to have to give this other partner a blowjob, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I just need to be okay with it. I know it's going to be difficult. I need to just be okay with it. It's just going to happen. It's going to be hard, and then it'll be okay. And then we lucked out on our first trip, our first at bat, and we met a great couple, and we went that far. We blowjobs and dual blowjobs and all this stuff, and I'm watching my wife give someone a blowjob, and in my head I'm going, wow, not only is this not difficult, but it's so hot. Oh my God, I am so turned on by this. What is going on? And then on the drive home, we're both like freaking out. We're like, we've been lied to our whole lives. We've been lied to. This is amazing. There's nothing wrong with this. And but then the feelings will creep up in really odd ways, like in ways you would never imagine. So
that's really powerful what you just said. So you really felt like everything you'd been led to believe about that type of experience was just not true for you.
Well, I mean, there's so many things. There's like this concept of ownership of your partner if you're male and your partner's female. There's this idea of protectiveness. There's this idea of manliness and all of these things. And I honestly, I think about it. I'm like, oh, I am the manliest man because I get to do all of these things. And like, I don't want to sound too boastful, but it's like, oh, I get to sleep with all these amazing women with my wife.
Like, I think you should be boastful because we work hard at it. It's not easy.
It is a time-consuming hobby, it's true.
I mean, yeah, and all of the feelings and the things that are brought up by it, it's... I'm saying, you should feel that way about it. It's good. I think it means we're doing something right.
Yes. But it is at odds from the sort of prototypical concept of the appropriate male. I'm not saying this loud enough. I'm close enough to
No, I just make sure you make the microphone closer to your mouth.
So I mean,
especially
right?
when talking about blowjobs. Just
Yeah. Well,
as I started talking about blowjobs, the microphone got a little further away. So, all right. So we're coming up on. We've just got a few minutes left. Although I feel like we could talk about this for another hour and not even blink. Can you guys share with us one of the best experiences that you've had with this?
How graphic.
I would say go crazy.
I'm sorry. That is surprisingly difficult.
I'll go global, and Tabitha can go specific. The best experience we've had is lifestyle travel.
Oh, tell me about that.
As a whole, it has been the most amazing thing. We've done a couple. We did something called Naughty and Nolans, which is a event held in July in New Orleans in the French Quarter.
And also, I'm sorry, but that's a really great starter event for anybody out there that's looking for an easy thing to do. You could drive there if you wanted to, for example, but it's a long weekend, and you could escape easily into the city if you find that you are overwhelmed by.
And there are classes and meetups and all of these things that help guide people into having a good time. And in addition to that, it's a collection of enough like-minded people that you are bound to find someone that works for you. And that's really important, and that's cannot be understated for these trips, because when you get 3,000 or 5,000 people together, then you have options. Everyone's having a great time. Everyone's supportive. It's amazing. And so we did that, and we've done 2 cruises. We've done the cruises run by Bliss, and we've done a private trip with a couple that we know. And that was also wonderful. So
these are trips, it's like a regular cruise, but basically or is it like one of these clubs that you're talking about, but floating?
Yeah, they charter the whole ship. So you take a large cruise liner and you fill it with 3,000 like-minded people, and you spend a week on the ship.
You're surrounded by happy people. And that's something that we hear time and time again from the crew on these cruises. Everyone is happy to be there. And it is this, I think one of my favorite things is this feeling of being accepted and welcome and included. Because there are all types. There are people, 20-year-olds all the way up to people in wheelchairs. And you see these older folks who, I don't know how long they've been doing it, but like they're extremely happy and comfortable with who they are. And to me, that's a beautiful thing.
Yes, I'm good. Yeah, I'm gonna go with lifestyle travel as my best experience.
Nice. So, so you mentioned that you've gone on a couple of these trips. There lifestyle cruises where you can just be, where I assume it's adults only, and you can just everyone there is swingers. The whole ship is a takeover.
Yes.
And is it the same situation at the one you're talking about in New Orleans?
New Orleans is interesting. They take over the Astor in the French Quarter, and then that entire hotel is reserved for this event. And there are more people that can fit in the Astor, so there are people in surrounding hotels, but they take over the entire hotel, so they have the meeting rooms for events, classes. They take over the event spaces to have dance floors and playrooms, and then they do events in the French Quarter, so they will take over a bar on Bourbon Street, and it will be an event only for people for this weekend event, and so it's pretty amazing.
Nice. So, so our last couple minutes, what are your guys' recommendations for? I'd like to do two things if we have time. What are your recommendations for how people should start, and what do you wish that you'd known in the beginning that you could say to people who are thinking about jumping into this?
What was the first question?
How would you recommend people start?
Google.
Yeah,
Google and
Google.
read. There turns out to be lots of blogs and radio shows and all sorts of things to get you started. I mean, you could even walk that back a little further and communicate with your partner. Start there, but assuming that you have a couple or whatever, and everyone's interested, do a bunch of reading. You can go to a local club. I don't know if I would recommend that. It can be a lot, and the selection is difficult because they're usually not that large, and you want to. And it also just depends on what you're interested in. So, Naughty and Nolans is a great way to start. It's great because for a lot of people, it's not where they live. So, in terms of their openness of in their normal life, they can go to another city, which is helpful. If you go, there are all sorts of meetups, which are a lot more focused on helping people talk to each other, and classes where you can learn about anything, and then it's a weekend, so you've taken a vacation, you've spent money, you're focused, you're relaxed because you've taken this time. So it's a very positive atmosphere versus going to a club at 10 p.m. on a Friday in some place that you don't know with people you don't know, and you have no idea what you're going to find when you get there. So,
and I have to agree with you on all of that. And also, the clubs can be a little cliquish. I find that local people like to go and meet there, and they've kind of, my experience has told me that they've already got their group together, and it's a little harder sometimes to break into that. New Orleans is a great place to go. I would say even in your area, if there are like small meetups and things like that, or maybe you can find another couple that's in your area and you guys can meet and talk about your experiences. I think that's a good way to go as well. And I think, meeting friends has been one of the best things, so.
And something we wish we had known, we have this phrase, we knew better. We've had a number of experiences where we finish and we look at each other and like, why did we do that? We knew better. We know better. So if I gave someone one piece of advice, it would be like, if you think you know better, if you're even a little bit like, maybe we shouldn't do this, don't do it. We're fortunate that we're young and flexible, and we kind of just blundered through, and we tend to laugh about it, but our lives are relatively simple, so it doesn't have an effect. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. That's really, really fantastic. Thank you guys so much. That's amazing. That was a really huge amount of information. I wish we could go on for another hour. I really appreciate your perspectives. Thank you so much for joining me today.
And if you have any questions or comments, please send them over to Dominey, and we'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, by all means, I'd be happy to hook you guys up. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this incredibly informative edition of The Art of Attraction. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you guys. Thank you very much to my guests for coming around. I think the audience really will appreciate it. Take care, guys.
Sorry.
Who are you, sorry?
I don't know.